Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of GodSaw's Turnbuckle, the wrestling video podcast I run here on youtube.com /UC Campbell. Everything in that sense. We are also looking for audio-wise, but I'm doing things a little bit differently this time. I'm live streaming this one. So at this point in time, like if you're watching this later, you're just seeing this as is. So as you already noticed, and you'll probably see this multiple times, I'll mess up something on stream or something in that sense. I forgot to turn up my my audio right off the bat. So guess what? Mess up right off the bat. So this is going to definitely be a little bit different now, doing things this way, because I will be, well, essentially, you'll get to see every single botch that happens. Because if I usually mess up at the opener, I'll kind of, you know, just laugh it off, re-record it, everything in that sense, and then I go on. But after that, you'll pretty much see it be a lot of the normal side, because I do allow for me when I mess up on lines, and or not necessarily lines, just mess up in the terms of talking and everything in that sense. So, just to basically bring that off and saying what the new thing going on is me streaming it. We're gonna go right into it now. The first one that we're gonna be doing this way is gonna be focusing around today with GFW Impact Wrestling from September 14th, 2017. I have been able to watch the episode, everything in that sense. It's just been a little bit of time since I've been able to do a recording for it. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. They started off the show with Bobby Lashley and America's Top Team coming in and everything. They were coming into the arena. They were basically playing it off as if Lashley needed to make a full-on decision whether he was going to do MMA or if he was going to do professional wrestling, and that was kind of the thing throughout the night. They come in, and they basically treat America's Top Team as like just nothing more than a bunch of bullies. That's how they usually are. They come in here today, and that's how they've been doing it. They've been attacking refs. Now they're attacking tech guys, everything in that sense. So that's how they ended up starting off the show. Right after showing this, they go into a match immediately with Braxton Sutter and Garza Jr., which I thought was a pretty decent match. They were building up a lot of tension between Ali and Braxton Sutter now, because they have been doing like this thing where he's kind of becoming overprotective of Ali, everything to go along with that. And it ends up costing him in this match here. Where, you know, Garza Jr. would do things around Ali, and it would cost Braxton Sutter to lose focus and everything. And eventually, Garza Jr. picked up the victory. What I thought was a decent match. Afterwards, they continue building the tension up a little bit more, where Braxton Sutter shows a lot of, you know, frustration and everything in that sense. Initially yells at Ali, but then kind of calms down and apologizes and goes about his way. Everything in that sense of it. So, it'll be interesting to see where they play off of everything on this one, to go along with. So up next, you had Phantasma going up against EC3, and this was for the Global Force Wrestling Grand Championship, the point system and everything in that sense. Honestly, this was a good match. It was a very fun match with both of them doing a lot of back and forth. I do like the system, only if they would actually make it more of an actual division versus just every match being for the title, to go along with it. I've said this plenty of times. I'm going to go ahead and say it again. I wish they would make it more of a division. EC3 took over the first round very handily, was in control most of the round. Phantasma took the second round, where he had basically controlled most of that round. The third and final round, they played it off as a lot more of a close base, everything, you know, back and forth between both of them, where with both of them kind of where EC3 looked like he could potentially get a pin, but the time ran out. So they went to the judges' scorecards, and they ended up doing a split decision where Dutch Mantel and Scott D'Amore had gone 1-1 with EC3 and Phantasma. So one thought Phantasma won, one thought EC3 won. They went to Hector Guerrero, who was on there. He was, and since Phantasma's from AAA and everything, they were playing it off as if maybe Hector would just favor Phantasma regardless. But he ends up giving the victory to EC3, which causes Phantasma to kind of do a heel turn. He goes crazy, gets into Hector Guerrero's face. And basically Hector's like, I called what I saw and I felt like he won. Versus that, it's like he's basically telling him to go in there and shake his hand. So Phantasma goes back into the ring and to kind of do that. And then, what was it? I'm going to butcher this. Pagano attacked EC3. And they treated this as a big deal, everything in that sense. I'm not big into AAA, so I don't fully know him, but apparently he main evented Triple Mania from last year. And it was basically made it feel like they were kind of doing an invasion angle in some way, shape, or form. Maybe that more AAA guys are going to come in and they're going to start some kind of an invasion angle or something in this sense. Because Eddie Edwards comes out and helps EC3. So you have a babyface and a heel working together, but they're working as the GFW side versus just against each other or anything in that sense. It was just the way it ended up playing off, at least in my mind. It played off in that way. So we'll see where they go with this. It'll probably lead to some kind of tag match next week or something. I don't know where it'll end up going. Up next, you had a couple of promos with LAX. So they were setting up this match with Ohio versus everything, or everyone, or however they really say it, in Tijuana, Mexico, in the Crash promotion. So they had set up a tag team title match with that, and they basically did a promo beforehand, kind of like grainy movie style, where they're discussing everything inside of a strip club, everything in that sense beforehand, kind of basically playing them off as like, oh, they're kind of gangster-esque, they're paying off the ref, they're doing this, everything to go along with it. Now, what they ended up doing, so after they did this, they went into basically a highlight form of this match, where it ends up getting made into a fatal four-way, and it was shot really well. I thought it was shot really well. I was kind of disappointed not to see the whole match because it made it look a lot better than what it potentially was. So I can't really say whether or not it was a good match or anything, because it was kind of highlighted in making it look extremely good in every way. I don't mind that for the matches, especially when they're doing this whole thing where they're going to another promotion or something in that sense of it. And they showed off as LAX gaining the victory in the end, in what was now a fatal four-way. And then afterwards, OVE comes in and confronts them in like the training area or something in that sense. And Conan threatens them and tells them to go back to Ohio, everything to go along with that. Makes an aspect of saying that everything in there is trailer parks, everything to go along with it. And it basically ended with OVE walking away. And he says, like, well, we know where their clubhouse is now. Let's go have some fun. So I guess it's going to lead to them doing something with the clubhouse or something in that sense down the line. So it definitely makes it play off that OVE and this LAX thing is not over with at this point in time. And we'll see how everything is not playing off. So up next, you had Grado going up against William Weeks, I think is what it was. It was Grado basically saying this is his last match. This is his last hurrah. He goes over super quick. This is like one of those few times that, Grado's going to be being on the not the receiving end of the squash match. He easily squashes him. Joseph Park comes out afterwards and says that he is going to they started an entertainment area for his law firm, and that Grado was going to be sponsored by them, and he's sponsoring his visa, everything in that sense, and that he can stay in the country. So they're playing it off that Grado is going to be staying around. Most people know, if you watched old GFWs in the past, that I'm not the biggest fan of Grado, but it is what it is, and he seems to fit in fine. He's definitely something that they need in the terms of the lighter side of everything within the company. So it's definitely, you know, like, it's not horrible, but I've never been the biggest fan of Grado. Up next, you had a Johnny Mundo. I'm not going to call... I know they call him Johnny Impact. I'm not going to call him Johnny Impact. I've kind of gotten used to Johnny Mundo from the... from Lucha Underground, everything in that sense. So I'm just going to call him Johnny Mundo. He basically cuts a promo on his match with Low Ki for that night, and he was, you know, it was what it was. It wasn't a really crazy big interview or anything in that sense. He just cuts a promo on the #1 contendership match for later on the night with him and Low Ki, and how he was going to become the #1 contender to Eli Drake and try to win the GFW World Title. So nothing really much to it. He got some pretty good promo now. Mundo, like I said, Mundo's cut a lot better in the terms of his promos over the years. He really hasn't changed his gimmick at all, though, throughout the entire time. One thing that we've seen with a lot of these guys who end up leaving WWE down the line, they continue on with wrestling, is that they kind of change their gimmick, their persona, their anything. But Mundo, not so much. He's kind of the same of what he was. Up next, you had Bobby Lashley in America's Top Team walking in to Jim Cornette's office. Basically, Lashley goes off and says that I want out of my GFW contract. I want to leave. I want to pursue MMA. Cornette tries to convince him otherwise. Like, you could do both. You could do this. They also makes this like that you won't be making as much money as you think you'll be making in MMA. Playing it off like that, but Lashley is very adamant that he wants to just do MMA. He wants out of wrestling. He doesn't want to do this. It's like, well, Cornette's like, well, okay, I'll go ahead and do it. As long as you go out there one-on-one, he emphasizes that, without your buddies, and faces Moose, and they settle their issue tonight. And he's like, okay, we'll go ahead and do that. It's like, we'll go ahead and do that, and everything in that sense. So, yeah, they're playing off that Lashley is, you know, leaving the company, everything to go along with that. But all he has to do tonight is go out there and basically have a brawl with Moose. And he'll get his release. Interesting way of getting a release, by the way. That is a very interesting way of getting a release, by the way. So, up next, before we get into all of that in general, you have a X Division title match with Sanjay Dutt going up against Trevor Lee, and this is a Falls Count Anywhere match. So they basically brawl throughout the entire arena. Like, a good portion of it is done in the ring. They even played off, like, Caleb Conley was coming out with Trevor Lee initially, but Trevor Lee sends him off to the back saying, it's like, I got this, don't worry about it. He plays in later. And this was a good match. Good back and forth, good Falls Count Anywhere match, where towards the end, they're fighting out in the parking lot area, and this is where it ends out ending too. And Caleb Conley was waiting out there, basically. It's like, this was the game plan all along. I was going to lure you out here, and now he's going to get involved into the match. I was going to, you know, lure you into a false sense of security, and then I would get help from him. He ends up helping out Trevor Lee, who ends up picking up the victory. I forget what the actual finishing move was. He was going for, Sanjay Dutt was going for a running off the wall DDT. Trevor Lee counters it and puts him into a barricade, like crotch first into a barricade, and then does something else, and then ends up picking up the actual victory itself. I thought this was a very good match. It was a very good way of telling the story of Trevor Lee trying to get the X Division title and doing it at any means necessary, that, you know, to the point that Caleb Conley, yes, legal, but for the terms of the match area, but gaining the unfair advantage in the end to pick up the victory and get the X Division title off of Sanjay Dutt. So let's see here. Let's go through everything here a little bit more. Here's a couple of extra things that they did. They had America's Top Team as they were leaving because Jim Cornette told them to leave. They basically run into Richard Justice. Richard Justice is like puts him over a little bit, but then they end up beating him up, and after he had asked to join the team and everything in that sense. So again, they're playing him off as bullies and the play and everything in that way. You also, I'm going to go just through a few more of the promos because I'm going to just go into the final matches here. Also, you had a promo from Eli Drake about the #1 contendership match later in the evening. He basically said that no, it doesn't matter who ends up winning. I'm going to keep the GFW title, and it doesn't matter who it ends up being in that sense. So, up next in terms of matches, you had Taya Valkyrie, basically Taya from Lucha Underground. She was also in AAA, everything in that sense. She went up against Amber Nova. One weird thing about this, and maybe it's because of the new character or something to go along with it, but Taya, it looked like she was walking, like she was uncomfortable with the character or anything in that sense. She was walking very awkwardly in the terms of everything. Because, like, I've seen her in Lucha Underground. She kind of knew who her character was, so she knew what she had to do, everything in that sense. It seemed like she didn't know what she needed to do here, so she was kind of forcing certain things as it was. It looked a little bit weird in the terms of her walk, in the terms of her strut, everything in that sense. She does beat Amber Nova rather quickly. After the fact, a little bit later on, before they went to Lashley and Moose in the ring, she gets in Karen Jarrett's face, basically saying it's like, this is what a real queen looks like, everything in that sense. It was weird that she was getting in Karen Jarrett's face about it. I guess it was just to try to solidify her as a heel, because Karen's kind of playing a babyface at this point in time. So that one was a little bit weird towards the end as well. But it's good to see Taya in the in GFW, in a different promotion, in an area that is a little bit more watchable in the turn, or I won't say watchable in the sense of Lucha Underground being bad. I actually like Lucha Underground, but more people watch it in that sense. And she picked, like I said, she picked up the victory in a squash match, which was pretty much with a glam slam, I think. She did the underhook and then lifts him up and lifts up Amber Nova and slams her face first into the mat. I believe that was Glam Slam. Beth Phoenix's Glam Slam. So the match was what it was. It was a showcase match. It was very much a showcase match. So this brings us to that #1 contendership match with Johnny Mundo and Low Ki. This is a good match. This is a very, very good match with both of them. A lot of people, going off of everything that, Low Ki had been, was leaving after this and everything. You're wondering how checked out he would be, but this match with Johnny Mundo and him, I thought came off really, 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 really good on all sides. Just good back and forth between both of them. You had, what was you didn't really have that moment, like you're looking at Low Ki, it's like, is he gonna try to do stuff that in order to actually hurt people on his way out? No, he wasn't really playing that off here, though he comes out with great intensity in the sense of everything. At least I feel like he comes out with very good intensity in this match, but Johnny Mundo ends up picking up the victory in the end, and what was, like I said, a very good match where Low Ki missed his Warrior's Way and basically landed on the second rope and everything, which eventually set up for the end of the world, or they are calling it Starship Pain again, but in Lucha Underground it's called the end of the world. I've never been a big fan of that finisher, just because it doesn't look like it hits all that much. In the end, at least to me, it doesn't feel like it hits all that much. It doesn't look very impactful. It looks like Morrison is hurting himself more than Morrison, Mundo. I just refuse to call him Johnny Impact. I just refuse to. So I'm going to continue to go with either Morrison or Mundo in some way, shape, or form. So after the match, Eli Drake comes out to confront Johnny Mundo, and he ends up also getting attacked by Chris Adonis from behind, and they both end up leaving him lying. So setting up towards the two of them down the line here. So this brings us to what ended the show, which was Bobby Lashley in the ring. This big brawl, basically says he makes the full announcement to the crowd. It's like, I'm leaving, you guys can be happy now because I know you guys never liked me to begin with. And he calls out Moose to have the big brawl. And Moose comes out, and it looks like he was going to talk. Instead, he just ends out laying out Lashley, and they just go for a big brawl, going throughout the entire arena, up the, like, into the crowd, up the rampway, back down the rampway. This is a long brawl, very good one too. Both of them, like, both of them in the terms of being in control and everything in that sense. Moose even gets to the point that he spears Lashley and goes to do it again inside of the ring, and America's Top Team comes out, and they basically they start beating down Moose. They start choking him out. Lashley in control as well, and they all end up leaving him lying to finish the show. And they all pose in like this heelish type way. It was a pretty good one. It was a pretty good one in that sense, and they played it off. And I think they said it later because I'm filming this now on Monday and doing this live on Monday versus doing this on Thursday. They basically released something that says Cornette's not going to let him out of his contract because America's Top Team came back in when he specifically told them to leave and be escorted out, and everything in that sense. So now Lashley is quote unquote not out of his GFW contract, in that he is basically going to be working with them for a period of time. So that's the storyline going forward, at least of how it ends out looking like. So overall this week's GFW was a pretty good show, honestly. Decent story building, couple really good matches with the EC3 and Phantasma match. You also have an angle going along with that. Now you have something with Eddie Edwards and EC3 kind of being GFW guys, and you have Pagano and Phantasma going as AAA guys. So maybe it's kind of a thing with that. The stuff that they did with OVE and LAX I thought was pretty good, though again I wish we could have seen the full match instead of just highlights, but the way that they shot it in general I thought came off as really well to go along with it. The match with Low-Key and Johnny Mundo was really good. That ending brawl and everything with Lashley and America's Top Team and Cornette and Moose, everything in that sense I thought was really good to go along with it. So overall I thought this was a very good episode of Impact Wrestling. Decent story building, decent, like I said, decent story building, continuing on with feuds. Nothing really ends with this particular episode, and I think they're basically building up to a quote-unquote special, which is just going to be on Pop TV, and it's going to be normal 2 hours. It's not going to be a pay-per-view, but they're calling it Victory Road, which was one of their old pay-per-view names, which is kind of their thing now. Over the last few years, it's like they only host like the 3 or 4 pay-per-views a year, and they use the old pay-per-view names as like network specials or something in that sense to go along with it. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I have on GFW Impact Wrestling this week. So I hope you guys enjoyed everything this week. I thank you guys for watching, and have a great rest of your day.